Hello and welcome back to On the Workbench. Today we're going to be changing out the toilet valve kit and going into a modern, actually made in the USA valve. To do this, we're going to be using a couple tools. We got our valve kit here, so this is a complete rebuild kit. I've got a old shower curtain here I'm going to use on the ground since there is a carpet in this bathroom. I've got a bucket here, and while I've got that off, I'm going to change my supply line. I've got an adjustable wrench, a pump here in case I need to get any extra water out of the tank. And what I don't have laid out here, but I've got over to the side, is my plumbing tank. Is my plumber's tape. So now, over to the toilet, and let's get started. Just for reference, here's the hardware that I've got. It's the old big, large black blob that floats in there on the fill side and the drain side. And so now I've got to be able to reach down and get this water out. There's probably about, maybe a 3/4 of an inch of water at the bottom of the tank that I'm going to have to pump out manually. When you've got most of the water out of the tank, this is probably a good time to stop, take a break, go have lunch, let it dry out. If you got a sponge, place it down there just to be able to pick up any water that's left. This is also a good time to think about if you want to change your flusher or your flush handle, since you're already in the toilet doing that. Also make sure you lift up the flapper and get the water out from below that, because we're going to have to get down under there to be able to install the new mechanism. So make sure your water is below the surface there, and then when that's dry we can start to disassemble the toilet with a screwdriver. You want to make sure the supply line to your toilet is turned off, otherwise it's going to continue to fill. So we're going to make sure that's off before we go into the tank. Okay, now that we've got the water cleaned out of the tank, our next step is going to be able to remove the supply line, and then we can disassemble the rest of the toilet from there. With the supply line disconnected from underneath, now we're going to go in from the top and remove our connection screws. Okay, with those bolts removed, now we're going to be able to remove our tank. Let me clear some space. And then our tank will lift off just like that. And with the tank off, you'll notice there's a little bit of scum right there. We're going to get a paper towel and come back and clean that up so we can make the adjustments to our tank. And the rest of our hardware and our installation goes on right here. In this case here, the way the tank connected to the bottom is there's a couple bolts at the bottom. A replacement hardware is going to have a threaded or a flathead tip at the top, so we're going to replace that with all new hardware to make our toilet in tip-top shape. Now let's take a look at the parts that come in this rebuild kit so we can familiarize ourselves with the parts that come with this. This one actually supposedly has a 5-year warranty and is made in the USA. And so we've got over here on our fill, let me see, move the camera here. For our fill side here, there's a little straw that goes down, and there's a float in here it looks like. And then on the flush side, we've got this assembly here with our plunger and the connection here that goes down between where the tank meets the toilet. You've got a paper gasket here, we've got a rubber or silicone gasket, our chain that's going to connect up to our flush handle, another gasket, some extra parts, bolts. I believe these are stainless steel just by looking at them, nuts, as well as our instruction guide. So make sure you look through the instruction guide here, and if you look at the diagram on the instruction guide here, you've got the supply side as well as the fill side. For scrubbing this here, there is still water right down here, so make sure you don't drop anything down that hole, because you will come back and regret it later. And so now here, we've got to figure out how this toilet was originally put together. This may require different steps depending upon your valve and how it was all assembled. Alright, that's off. you may, depending upon your toilet setup, you may need different combinations of screwdrivers for getting the stuff removed. If you get a little bag nearby that you can use for trash, that's probably advisable too, just to get all of the junk out. Now, since you are removing this, you could just sit here and break things off like that. We also had another problem with a leak at the supply line that was leaking out onto the floor, and so that's what got the attention first for needing to do this rebuild. And so we flip the tank upside down. Again, this is why it's good to have a little mat. You could use a garbage bag, you could use a handful of things to do this. And depending on what kind of hardware you're taking off, you may need a different combination of tools than what I'm using here. Usually a good pair of adjustable pliers is also a favorite tool of mine for doing odd jobs like this. I know it seems like adjustable pliers are a little bit out of style these days, but to me they're an indispensable tool to have around. And as I take these parts off, I'm just going to throw them right into the parts bag. So the more you can learn about your system as it comes off, the better off you're going to be. Kind of nice pair here of these really large extra duty plumbing pliers. So you're getting harder to find these days, but you never know when you're going to need them, and sometimes when you need them, you don't know you're going to need them in advance, and the investment is well worth the money. So now we got our parts off. Now it's time to rebuild the toilet tank. And so now on the new part here, we're going to start here with our toilet flapper. This is nice flexible silicone. So excited about that. We'll get our old part out of the tank here. And then put the tank on its side. Make sure you remember which way is front and back.
We've now got the bolt attaching the flush device here at the bottom of the toilet. I just was grabbing that. Now we got the gasket. You can see where this is actually grooved out to fit around the outside teeth of the nut. And this is going to form the watertight seal between the tank and the bottom of the toilet. So make sure you get this pressed into place very well, like you see I'm doing right now. Okay, so now I've actually had to switch cameras to a newer camera. My older camera died actually right as I was finishing up this project. And I've done some extra renovation here, so I'm coming back and shooting some catch-up footage here to finish off this video. And so where I left off in the previous footage, you could see where I was reassembling the bottom of the flush assembly, which is what's down here in the center of the toilet. You have to get that assembled according to the instructions, because once you get that put together, especially that gasket that's going to interface between the tank and the bottom of the toilet, that's going to create the seal that's going to be required to be able to hold the water. Then you can see there's the 2 screws down there. I used the new screws, they're stainless steel, and bolt that together. And then when you get that put together, then you can come back and install the filling assembly here. And then there's a little straw that comes off and goes down, and that's for your overflow down into the flush column here. You can see that goes down. And so this simply goes in here, and then there's a bolt at the bottom. You saw me remove the old one. This works the same way. And then you're going to come down below. And then down below, you're going to connect the supply line down to the fill. I use that new supply line you saw, because if I'm taking it apart, I might as well replace the supply line. And so with just a couple tools, it's really easy to fix your toilet and put a brand new flush mechanism in there in case it's leaking. So I hope you found this video useful, and have a great day.